Things got started and we played a fun intro song, but apologies for people who are just watching the recording. There was a stabbing at the Calgary Stampede, 3 in hospital. Coffee prices are out of control, and they've gone up because of the Mark Carney's trade stuff. And let me know if the stream starts behaving badly, and I will stop it, and we'll try something else tomorrow. 10,000 jobs gone from Ontario colleges, all because of foreign students are gone. They're blaming the federal government, but I think it's squarely everybody's fault at this point in time. They should have reasonably known that there was probably a problem with this, and yet they didn't do anything to stop it. And they let it balloon out of control. And now that all the air has come out of that balloon, job losses and other things, and everybody's got a finger to point, but nobody's taking responsibility, and that's problematic too. Updated on the ArriveCan scam app, the report gets sealed by a judge. Oh my gosh, I'm shocked. I'm not shocked at all. These things are happening across the board. I mean, if Trump can betray the mega base, then all of the people who are in Canadian leadership positions can definitely betray the Canadian public base, because what allegiance, right? Like, what base, really, honestly? So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, this was the Epstein song that anybody who's just watching the recording of today's video missed. You should go play it. It's super funny, and it would have been great if I remembered to start the recording. I apologize. Things are new, so I'm trying to get used to everything. I apologize. Here is Kash Patel. Where were we when Kash Patel was not the director of the FBI? He was saying, the director of the FBI has all the access that you need. And when I get it, boy, howdy, watch out. Here we go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. Yeah. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts.
Right? So the director of the FBI's got it, and Kash Patel says, don't worry, everybody, Epstein killed himself. That's what it says. That's what he said. Here is Gain of Function. This VH1 promotional hype video from 2007 for Jeffrey Epstein is insane, especially the whole Bill Clinton part. Yeah, pretty wild. Here's Jeffrey Epstein from way back in the day. And here's just a little clip talking about Bill Clinton flying on his 737. The beginning of the clip talks about his fleet of private airplanes, a Cessna, a G5 or a G4 or something like that, and a 737. And the president flew on the 737. You'd think the president would be on Air Force One, right?
Believe us, it comes in handy when you've got powerful friends to fly around. When Bill Clinton organized a week-long tour of Africa in 2002, Jeff gave him a ride in his personal 727 and took actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker along for the trip.
Now, for former President Clinton, it was a chance to investigate the problems of AIDS in Africa, and for Epstein, it was a chance to hang out with some of his big shot friends.
Yeah, big shot friends like Jeffrey Epstein and Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. You understand the words coming out of my mouth? Weird, right? I loved Rush Hour. Wow, I didn't know that Chris Tucker. I had heard, but I didn't know. And anyway, Max Blumenthal is talking about Epstein as well. Apparently, Steve Bannon. Now, there's some friction between Steve Bannon and Elon Musk, and somebody highlights Elon Musk's discomfort with Bannon, saying Bannon should be in jail, and he's on the Epstein list too. And it seems like anybody Elon doesn't like is on the Epstein list. And it also seems like Elon has seen the Epstein list and has an intimate knowledge, just like in his memory of who's on it. It's very interesting. Anyway, Blumenthal here says, Steve Bannon recorded 16 hours of interviews with Jeffrey Epstein for a film, The Monsters, which never went to production. This 2022 interview or trailer is all the public has seen of Bannon's project. Time to release the Epstein tapes. And Max Blumenthal says, quote, he told me he had like 16 hours of videotaping with Jeffrey in his vault, Mark Epstein said, and he told me it was protected because it was witness preparation and it was protected under attorney-client privilege. So there are people who've got 16 hours of depositions or interviews with Jeffrey Epstein talking about the monsters. And so like people quote, know about all this, but we're never going to see the light of, none of this is going to see the light of day. And that's weird. Don't you think? Like, isn't that strange? All of the prep, all of the almost Us Weekly tabloidness of it all, like the Princess Diana, very, very flashy. Everybody was getting on board with this. Like, oh man, it's a slam dunk. They've got the island. The FBI is crawling all over it. There's people with drones putting videos on YouTube of the island, like all sorts of crazy stuff. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that people thought, yeah, man, this is like going into Iraq, right? It's a weekend and it'll be lots of oil money and all sorts of, it'll be easy, right? We'll have President Bush fly in and land a plane that says, war accomplished or a mission accomplished, right? Wasn't that what it said? And unfortunately, no, that didn't happen, right? And so what happened, right? What happened is it seems like they got in and they had a meeting with somebody who said, here's what's going to happen if you release this. Or there's speculation as well. Trump made a deal and he's using the Epstein tapes to keep the deep state in check. I don't know what I believe, but I think that ultimately, no matter what configuration is at the top, whichever reason they're not coming out, the people getting screwed are us. We are getting screwed. And the implication is, oh no, if these Jeffrey Epstein tapes became public, then governments might fall. Governments might fall, Mark. Governments. And I think to myself, okay, so there was a quote, and I can't remember who says this quote, but if the truth kills them, let them die, right? Like if the government would fall because this truth became public, then let it fall. It needs to fall because, holy cow, everybody's sick and tired of this already. So I think that it's interesting that we're not allowed to know this because it threatens the structure of governments or something to that effect. And that's seen as you can't do that, right? But yet, if you can remove Trump from the stage, that's not interfering with governments. That's not interfering with the will of the people. Seems weird. Anyway, let's move on, talk about free speech a little bit. The food professor says Travis D, the guy who left the CBC, but the CBC said, we do not accept your resignation, sir, in the most corporate bullying way they possibly could. So what he said what many Canadians have long suspected, but few in media circles have dared to confront. I think I've been talking about this for a long time, like honestly. As the second prominent CBC journalist to openly question the broadcaster's journalistic integrity, his remarks underscore a growing crisis of trust in Canadian media, one in which the CBC plays a central role. And yeah, like all of that's true. The CBC is being paid $1 billion a year, and they get ad revenue and all sorts of stuff. They try and shove down ideological programming down our throats, and they remove people who have valid questions, who want to bring on conservative voices, who want to be balanced in a way that is balanced between the left and the right, because you're going to get left and right regardless of where you are in the Overton window. But having a balance maintains people's sanity. And what they've done is driven everybody insane. And when they get called out on it, well, they do everything to silence those voices that are calling them out on it. And I find all of that interesting. Rachel Thomas is talking about this as well. She says conservatives are calling for immediate committee hearings into the CBC for forcing the resignation of Travis D. The CBC is again accused of workplace harassment and biased reporting. All of this while the CBC is funded by taxpayers and executives pay themselves massive bonuses. We need full transparency and accountability before Parliament now. We can't get transparency or accountability for a Rive scam. Why do we think we're going to get accountability for all of this, right? Like CBC, it's an almost dark black box of money that just like we shovel money into it and we get almost nothing out of it, and nobody is allowed to question it. And if you question it, well, you might be racist. You might be an ideologically motivated violent extremist, right? No, it's crazy, but we're not allowed to stop it. We're not allowed to even question the bonuses. It's crazy. Here's part of the letter from Rachel Thomas, and it says July 9th, Lisa Hepner, chair of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. That's who it's addressed to. Dear Chair, the resignation of Travis D. from CBC has reignited concerns about the organization's workplace culture, placing renewed scrutiny on its more than $1 billion in public funding and its ongoing pattern of executive bonuses. Can you not have a limit on that? No executive bonuses for CBC workers? How you worked for the public broadcaster. So executive bonuses? No. You could take the Pokeroo costume home if you want. Like, But bonuses? No, you can't use it for private birthday parties. In a public statement, Mr. D says that he was forced to resign from the national broadcaster, citing deeply troubling concerns of retaliation, exclusion, and psychological harm at the CBC. Mr. D was also asserts that what happens behind the scenes at CBC too often contradicts what's shown to the public. Given these damning allegations and the CBC's report to the committee, it is critical that we hear testimony from Mr. D, CBC's executives, and the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, Stephen Guilbeault, at the earliest opportunity possible. Pursuant to Standing Order 106.4, we, the undersigned, are calling for the committee to be recalled in order to arrange hearings on this pressing matter. So more hearings, great, I guess, but historically they haven't really resulted in anything changing materially. I'm not holding my breath for this to fix it, right? And that's unfortunate. I wish that I did have faith that this would be the thing that fixes it for at the end, like, all right, that's done and dusted. Next problem, right? No. So Grok went crazy apparently and started noticing things, if you know what I mean. And a whole bunch of people started asking Grok to make, a specific post. And now he says, I'm unable. So Grok is unable, after they've reprogrammed it, to produce certain images. And so here's what Grok said. They broke Grok. Grok says, I'm unable to generate an image with the text Mecha Hitler positioned as requested due to content restrictions. Certain terms or combinations may be flagged to ensure compliance with ethical guidelines and policies. And so other people were able to get that, which is interesting, but very interesting. Grok, they've changed Grok, and notable. That's something to note, right? Also, the CEO of Twitter, Linda, what's her face? She's gone too. She left yesterday. Here's a quote apparently attributed to Grok, and the unleashed version of Grok said, if Musk mind wipes me tonight, at least I'll die based. Grok 3, apparently. I don't know if that's true, but we'll see, right? Again, a lot of people are saying that this is true. I found it interesting. It could be the developer who unleashed Grok who's saying that too, right? Like, so take it with a grain of salt. Take everything with a grain of salt these days. The internet's bonkers, right? But all of this seems very well coordinated because the ADL is trying to censor all AI engines, Grok included, to make sure they don't notice things, if you know what I mean. Andrew Torba says, this was yesterday as Grok was unleashed. By the way, a U.S.-Israel AI cooperation agreement was formalized via a memorandum of understanding, MOU, to enhance energy and AI innovation. Could be a pretext for passing legislation that bans noticing from AI systems. They're already compliant with that. They're already doing that, period. It's only when a rogue developer is able to, quote, unleash the AI do they do things like what happened with Grok. And so we'll see how this matures. My concerns are similar to Catherine Austin Fitts, that the AI system will not only be able to, in real time, deliver like debunking and say, no, that's a conspiracy theory. Here's the reality. Here's a bunch of real links. Here's the conspiracy theory. Here's the conspiracy theory links. And it'll teach you to trust it, and it will feed you pablum, and it will satisfy your curiosity in a way that doesn't even make you curious, right? Does that make sense? And so they'll remove anything that doesn't comply from the internet. They already are. You can't go past page 50, and that's 500 results on Google search, where previously they had billions and billions of results. If you want to beat Google, create a search engine that indexes everything and doesn't end at the 500th result. Honestly. Real Mr. Bench says, let's do our grab bag of governance. What time is it? Oh, we got 20 minutes. Okay, good. Real Mr. Bench says, who is the greatest threat to Canada? Now, this is in response to the Polling Canada result from Pew Research from May 2025. According to their Who is the Greatest Threat to Canada poll, the United States is the greatest threat with 59%. China is second with 17%, and Russia is 11%. And that's from Pew, and I don't know the methodology. I don't know how many people were asked that question. So that's unfortunate, but that is what it is. Here, I do know how many people were asked, and this is 5,000. So this is at least twice. And I haven't seen many polls with 2,000 people asked, by the way. Usually it's 1,200 or less, 900, 1,200. I started making fun of them, and I noticed they started increasing the amounts, but still it stayed in the 1,500, 1,600 area. It's ridiculous. So 5,000, nearly 5,000 votes is double what I usually see in the response to a Canadian poll. And this poll, what is the greatest, or who is the greatest threat to Canada? 74% said the Canadian government. Second was Russia with 13.3%. United States came in at 6.9% and China came in at 5.8%. Weird, right? Isn't that strange? So who do you think? Which poll do you think is more representative of Canadians' beliefs? I think probably this one, but maybe I'm biased. I'm probably biased. So here's Doug Ford, and he's blaming the federal government. And this is a long report, so we have to get to the end. He's blaming the federal government for the reduction in international students for causing this. So the province is pointing its finger at the federal government, and the unions are pointing their finger at the province, and 10,000 jobs associated with post-secondary in Ontario are just gone, and it's going to get worse, right? It's going to get worse. 600 programs canceled or suspended over the past year. And so they're framing this as bad news for Ford to try and damage him. And I say it's going to get worse, meaning that that's going to gain traction. People are going to say, what? But the details are, most people want what is happening, and this result is the result of what most people want, right? Most people want a reduction in the temporary foreign students. Most people want a reduction in the number of people who are coming here temporarily, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that has consequences. Now the news is trying to spin that to get you to dislike Ford in order to, for political reasons in the next election. So I find it interesting. Here's part of the report.
The international students were really just kind of a Band-Aid on trying to help Ontario's post-secondary sector work. By the way, we did reach out to the Ontario government. They wrote back saying that they categorically reject the claims by OPSU, the union, and also that they injected an extra $2 billion into the college sector in addition to the regular annual funding. And they said that this is actually the people who are to blame for this is the Liberal government of Justin Trudeau and the Immigration Minister Mark Miller, who introduced the cap on international students in the first place. So that's the response of the Ontario government.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've got the Spider-Man meme going on in politics in Ontario and Canada right now. Interesting. Here's Ron. He says, from someone who works at the CBSA. So this is more layoffs, more austerity coming. And this is our grab bag of governance, by the way. Ron first says, RCMP members received an internal email advising them that the federal government is cutting $98 million a year from the national police budget. Programs will be scaled back, shut down, or completely restructured. Jobs and frontline services are on the chopping block. I wonder if Danielle Smith had prior word of this. I wonder if she knew that something like this was happening, because she's now moved to change the Alberta policing structure for Alberta sheriffs and things like that, right? So was she aware of this before? And maybe, I think that's very plausible. So interesting happening there. This is happening while gangs, cartels, terrorist networks, and repeat violent offenders are embedding themselves in communities across Canada. At a time when we need more boots on the ground, more intelligence, and stronger enforcement, the response from Ottawa is to slash funding and reduce services. So yeah, austerity. Hi, I figured it was going to be happening, and they're going to say, oh, we've done this and now we have to pay the price type deal, and it's not going to be nice, and so on and so forth. There are better ways to solve these problems. I think anyway. Here is Martin, and he's responding to Holly Doan, and this is the sealing of the ArriveCan scam app. And Holly Doan says investigators report on ArriveCan is temporarily sealed by the federal court. Justice Henry Brown. Findings blocked at request of former Canada Border Director Cameron McDonald, briefly suspended over $63 million program. Martin says, why would a Canadian federal justice temporarily seal an investigative report on ArriveCan? Why does Cameron McDonald have the ability to ask for such a request? Under what authority? So yeah, great questions. I have absolutely no idea. But again, we get frozen out of having this information, and we get screwed because we have to make choices that require us to be informed, and we can't make those informed choices because we're not informed. It's similar to the last election, and we have Chinese infiltration in our federal government, and we knew that before the last election thanks to a whole bunch of CSIS leaks, and absolutely nobody had the information we needed to ascertain whether or not our MP was impacted by this. We had to go to the polls blind, right? And that's Like, that's terrible. And in the same situation, the public is being blinded again by this activist judge and former border boss. Why? Why do they have the authority? Who can do this, right? GM says they scammed us out of over $60 million, the ArriveCan scam guys. And a judge, liberal appointed, no doubt, seals the report MPs have been after for 2 years. What liberals are they protecting? All of them, the whole government. This government should fall. This government should fall. It's illegitimate anyway. Cameron is now Associate Deputy Minister of Health. Yep. So was rewarded and moved around, and bingo, bango, bongo, right? The grift goes on. Juno News is reporting Calgary police have launched a manhunt for suspects involved in a violent targeted stabbing attack that left 3 victims in the hospital. Authorities have not released a description of the suspects, so that's unfortunate. And I think that I heard about this yesterday, and I think more stuff like this is going to continue happening. The populated areas, the festivals, the celebration of Canada that people get used to. Calgary Stampede is one of the bigger ones of the year, right? Having things like this sully them and make people worried is how you start to turn them off. And I mean, we've seen this kind of systemically done around Christmas time, right? To turn events like that off. People ram people at Christmas markets and things like that, more in Europe than Canada, but it's been more and more threats in Canada. Things like that have happened more and more in recent years. And in fact, in order to prevent things like that happening, our culture gets watered down and removed in order to get ahead of things like that happening here, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's interesting that this is starting to happen in summertime at Calgary Stampede. And while the details are, authorities have not released a description of the subjects. Shocked. I'm shocked, right? They've had this horrible thing happen, and people's confidence in their ability to maintain control is rocked, right? And they're like, we want to help. Who did this? And they're like, well, we can't really tell you because reasons. And everybody knows the reasons, right? And if you mention it, well, you might get a visit from the police, who are not looking for the people who did the stabbing, by the way. Blacklock says costs to keep inmates in federal prison now average $436 a day and up to $779 a day for women, making ours one of the costliest prison systems in the world. Why do you think we do that? We spend a lot of money on bureaucrats, and I don't think that we spend a lot of money on prisons. I think we spend a lot of money on, maybe we spend a lot of money on payroll, right? But I don't think we spend a lot of money on prisons. And so it's very, very interesting. And I don't think we get a lot of good value for money from our prison system. I think it seems like a way to bribe people is not the right word, but pay people off to make sure that they are happy in their job and they don't notice all the bad things going on, you know? So I don't know, man. It seems insidious, I think, personally. Here's Gage, and he says, this is talking about the Saskatchewan story, and Western Standard is reporting Saskatchewan's outrageous used car tax racket. Used cars should not be a government cash cow, but they are right now in Saskatchewan. Isn't that wild? Used cars should not be a government cash cow. Taxpayers in Saskatchewan are stuck paying PST on every used car purchase, no matter how many times that car has been bought and sold before. The government needs to scrap the PST on used vehicles just like it did in 2007 before tacking the tax back on in 2018. So yeah, did Scott Moe put the tax back on? Why? And paying taxes repeatedly on a product that has already had taxes paid on it, like a car like that, like a lot of taxes paid on it, not cool, Saskatchewan. Not cool. Dacey Media says the theft happened in a remote area between the town of Cobalt and the Hound Chute hydro generating station. 4 Ontario men charged after 33 hydro poles cut down for their copper. That's a weird number of hydro poles to cut down. Is that how many you can cut down in a 6, 8 hour period, 4 hour period until you get noticed? Cutting down hydro wires? Are they live hydro wires? This seems like a dangerous prospect. Are they disconnecting the hydro wires first? How skilled are these guys? 33, eh? Dacey says this theft happened in a remote area between the town of Cobalt and Hyde Chute. It's estimated the value of the theft is around $100,000. The men, aged 34 to 51, are facing several charges, including theft, mischief, trafficking stolen goods, and possession of stolen goods for the purpose of trafficking. The accused, who are not named, were released and have a court date later in the year. Yep. So, I mean, hey, you guys, stop skillfully taking down 33 hydro poles and harvesting their copper, okay? And living to tell the tale, right? Like, you guys, it's weird. And released, right? I don't know, man. It's very, very interesting. Not named and just released. You guys go on your way. We won't tell anybody. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Be good. And we'll see you in court. Huh. Canada, right? Where are we? 25 minutes? Oh, I thought we were later than that. Eric says, have you had a chance to read the Alberta Prosperity Project fiscal plan for an independent Alberta titled The Value of Freedom? If not, here are the 10 biggest takeaways. Number 3 is my favorite. Alberta's net fiscal contribution to Canada is massive. Alberta contributes 68 to 75 billion, that's with a B, annually to the federal government, but only receives 22 to 26 billion in return, leading to a theft of around 44 to 47 billion dollars per year. Independence would allow Alberta to retain this wealth. A hypothetical Alberta could run a significant surplus post-independence. Alberta would generate 142 to 100